Welcome to the new podcast by Gary's Therapy. I'm your host, Jonny Shield, and in this episode today, we'll be talking about the inception of Gary's Therapy. So before we get started on this episode, I want to keep this podcast interactive, and that means you guys are going to drive the show. So if there's any questions that you want to answer around the GT products, or if you've never used Gary's Therapy before, then this is the podcast for you. So don't forget to give us a little like and a follow, and keep updated on all the socials for the up and coming shows. So let's bring in Maz, the director of Gary's Therapy. Hey Maz, how you doing today?
Good, thank you, Jonny. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
So the first question I want to ask you today, Maz, is how did you come across the name Gary's Therapy?
I'm not very good with names. So when Roger came to me with this idea that we should start detailing again, I said to him, you've got to be joking. Who wants to, detail cars, especially when at the time I was flying all around the world. I had a large team under me, a lot of responsibility, large P&L to look after. And I had barely had time to even see my own kids and wife, let alone detail cars. So I said to him, well, I'll tell you what, we'll start a car care brand because I have various contacts in various parts of the industry. And if we put those together, we can potentially have a new brand, a startup. So we started brainstorming names. And some of the names I came up with weren't very flattering. Go
on, give me one anyway. You must have one still in the back of your mind.
Oh God, I try to forget all of my failures as quickly as possible, but it was something like "Make It Shine" or
something like that. So you went down the cheesy route. You went like a cheesy pop route.
I said all sorts of odd stuff. I didn't take anything very seriously, but Roger, when we were sort of shouting out names, he came up with Gary's Therapy is one of the first things he came out with. And he even tried to set me up and say, Maz, don't poo-poo it before, we get a chance to think about this. But it's Gary's Therapy. And I hated it, if I'm honest with you. I thought, people won't like that. That's really cheesy. But the more I thought about it, and after a few days, I thought, yeah, actually, Gary's Therapy is the right name for us.
I can't imagine it being called anything else but Gary's Therapy, and it really fits the ethos for me when for someone like myself who uses the product. It fits that ethos on how I feel about when I'm washing a car, and it is kind of therapy for a lot of people when they're washing cars. It's kind of it's the least stressful part of the process is washing the car. So when you're doing decons or polishing or coatings and stuff, that's quite high intensity, quite stressful. So the kind of like the wash process can be kind of a real relaxing process. It's that final rinse off after a decon. It just feels like,
Well, I mean, precisely what you're saying is precisely the conversation Roger and I were having when we settled on the name Gary's Therapy. And I've been lucky enough in my life and career to have had some very hyper intelligent colleagues who've done some amazing things and been lucky enough to have a few mentors as well. I say mentors in the loose sense of the word.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Not officially mentors, but people I looked up to. But a very good friend of mine who I worked with when I was younger in IT, his name was Ash, and he's had a phenomenal career. He's hyper intelligent. He's a doctor in heuristics, and for people that don't know what heuristics is, it's like it's effectively a doctor in how human beings visualize interfaces and interfaces you'll see on like a computer or graphics or logos and things of that nature. That's the best way I can describe it. And he's worked for very big companies like Microsoft. He was instrumental in designing some of the key features of Microsoft's Aero interface back in the day. He helped develop YouTube. He's worked for various governments around the world. He's done some really amazing stuff. And when we got Ash involved to get a little bit of consultancy about my business idea with Roger, and he absolutely loved the name, and he put together effectively a proof of concept document where he created what our products would look like, or potentially what they could look like, what the brand would be about, because he started many businesses up in the past, and that really sort of set the fire in our belly to really pursue this and carry on and make the name actually mean what you described. It is a therapy, right? It gives 100%. You a chance to...
Definitely for me.
It gives you a chance to escape, right, from your everyday problems.
It sounds a bit cheesy, but those who don't do this as a full-time job definitely treat this as therapy, whereas people who do this as a full-time job, they've kind of lost that therapy, if that makes sense. It's a bit like a footballer used to play down the park, and now they play in front of thousands of people all the time, and they get paid a lot of money, and it kind of crosses over. But I think for a lot of people, it's still... majority of the people out there aren't running a business. It is actually therapy. So Roger is obviously your business partner. He's obviously someone you've gone into this business with. So when did you guys have the possibility and this thought process that this was going to come to fruition to actually have your own car care brand in this really, really competitive industry?
I think once we picked the name and once we had that proof of concept document, as I referred to it with Ash, the next stage was actually getting chemists, and that's when things became very real, because I then put out the feelers in the industry. I'm very lucky again to have a friend that I've known for well over 20 years. I actually, funnily enough, I met him through gaming when I was a young lad at university, and we kept in contact, and as his IT career blossomed, I guess, and progressed, and my IT career progressed. We used to be in contact all the time, talking about new technologies and how we overcome various problems, and we used to talk on a daily basis. And he worked for a large raw material manufacturer, and I always remembered that. And obviously, when we came down to how do we start garage therapy, I said, well, I know someone in that industry, let me get in contact with them and see what we can come up with. And one thing led to another, and we acquired chemists. And the fruits of that is that because they are a large raw material manufacturer with various sites around the world, they have access to chemicals and additives and suppliers and people they work with that in a sense maybe gives us an advantage potentially to create something unique and special, because there was no way that Roger and I would want to go to a blending house, as an example. Not that there's anything wrong with blending houses, but get a generic white labeled product and rename it and say, hey, look at this product, because I can't sell something I don't believe in. And we wanted to create something, not just have something, rubber stamp it with our logo and say, look what we've created. No, we actually wanted to create something, and I think we've done that.
That goes on to my next point, is you've got this blueprint now, or I say blueprint, but you've got this idea of proof of concept of what you want to do, and now you've got to turn it into a car care brand. So you've got to go and get these chemists, you've got to go and get this experience you're learning on the job, as well as all these new things come up about it. So you brought out the products individually, very slowly and methodically, obviously working on each product specifically as you went along. Was that a conscious decision, or was it a financial decision, or a bit of both? What was the process behind bringing out products slowly and but surely?
Well, all 3 points you made. So the realities of having your own chemists is very expensive. We didn't want to get outside investment to start the company. We used our own cash to do that. And the reason I didn't want to get outside investment is that I felt that it would almost be cheating and running before you even had a brand almost up and running already. And I didn't want that. And I wasn't convinced that we would even be successful in this industry because of how competitive it is. And as you identified, it's a learning curve. So there was a lot of things we didn't know about. And if you get investors on board, you then have someone you have to appease, right, and report back to, and so they get their return of investment. Yeah. And I certainly didn't want that. I've been in big business for a long time now, and again, I've been very fortunate to have to be part of large multi-million pound projects, have large multi-million, multi-billion pound companies that I've worked with and for, and I know what that type of business model would entail.
Yes,
and I wasn't willing to do that. Especially as when we started Garage Therapy, I was already employed in my corporate life, so it was sort of like a side hustle initially. But the realities of having your own chemist and developing something from the ground up is that it takes time, and it requires them to formulate. It requires them to understand what the brief is. It requires us to understand fully what we're asking for, because you don't get everything right in the beginning. It required us to understand the chemistry a lot better, because if you don't understand the chemistry, you can't ask the right questions, and all of that takes time and money. And to develop the 3 products we launched with, which was Decon shampoo, car shampoo, wheel shampoo, that took hundreds, I don't know the exact amount of hours, but
a long time.
A long time, yeah, hundreds of hours certainly between all of us.
And you were learning on the job as well, right? So you're going to make mistakes. It's like, I liken it to the fact you just picked up a set of golf clubs and now you're going down the driving range and you're just using just all the things you've learned in life to sort of develop that skill set, but like you still not your normal environment to do this. So you're having to, every day is a real, probably steep learning curve, right?
Absolutely. You're always learning, even today. You always want to be better than you want to be a better person today than what you were the day before. And there's always something to learn. Yeah.
So let's for talk, sure. So the garage therapy products have got systems, right? So that goes on to the bit where you've got these 3 products and obviously you've developed these systems. So just talk me through the systems, because I think that people get a little bit blurred with actually what they are.
So it does link back to the previous question. So sure. when we developed these 3 products, it took a good year and a half to develop them. And at that point, we had already committed to what our 5-year plan would look like. And part of that 5-year plan is creating a system of products to be part of the garage therapy product line. And as detailers, or certainly retired detailers, but as detailers, you want the products to have a purpose. You want them to make sense. And for us as a brand, we want all of them to work in synergy. Now, this is where Roger's expertise, my expertise in large corporations, and where you get exposed to complex systems and processes, where you're designing software or infrastructure, or Roger's designing a building, or figuring out, I don't know, how much a steel beam can take, in a gherkin or something like that. All of that, there's processes and methodology behind that, and we tried to implement a lot of what we'd learned in other industries into the range. So as we committed to building out the lineup, we could only do that methodically and as and when the projects started and finished within certain timeframes. So a project lifecycle, when you're creating a product from scratch, can take 3 months, it could take 6 months, it can take a couple of years. Certainly the coatings took a lot longer because we made lots of mistakes.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a system. I know I'm giving you quite a long answer here.
No. Spot on.
But there is a system, and every product that is part of the system has been carefully considered, and it's all geared around process efficiency. And as I said to you offline, I don't suffer fools gladly, and I don't suffer bad processes gladly either. I'm
definitely going to start getting you a T-shirt made like that, by the way.
Well, it's funny. I did like a character assessment test. There's a specific name for it, where you answer various questions and you do various tests, and it comes with a sort of like a psychological profile of what you're like as a person. And one of the things that
like a psychometric test, isn't it?
Yeah, psychometric test, that's it. And one of the things that came out of that was that I'm very driven to find the shortest way to do something efficiently and properly. And that was one of the summaries of that test. Right. And it was bang on. I've always been like that. I love if there's a way of doing something quickly but properly, then I will gun for it. I will go after that. And a lot of that in the lineup and Roger's not here, obviously, to add his 2 cents to it, but I can safely say we're very similar in that respect.
You blend in that. It's not, and it works together rather than you work against each other in that situation, because it's quite a powerful thing when you've got that nature. It's quite an overbearing. It's quite overbearing, isn't it?
We're similar in many ways, and we're very different in many ways. Roger is probably a lot more creative than I am in terms of ideas and media and graphics. And I guess that's because of his job, right? He's designing buildings and structures and doing some really complex stuff in like CAD programs.
Problem solving must be quite high up on that.
Absolutely, and I come from a more programming, infrastructure, networking, sort of all of that IT stuff background. So it's two different, very different disciplines, and we have very different characters. But you're right, we do work well together in that respect.
You definitely, when I've seen you both together, it definitely blends nicely. And I think you don't need, I've been in business, I've had business partners, and there's been businesses have failed off the back of the friction between the two partners, just like mummy and daddy, if that makes sense. It's not good when you're in those relationships. You've got to be able to give and take and be able to work together in those things. So, but it sounds to me that you both have but the moralistic compass in the same ballpark of what you both wanted the brand to turn out like. You both agreed on settled for that, like, kind of, it had to be the best. It had to be, we want the best products, we want them to perform the best, we want to encounter problem solving as well for detailers as well.
Yeah, there's I think that if you don't aim high enough, then you're destined to you're destined to fail, or you're destined for mediocrity.
Yeah, that's probably worse, isn't it?
Yeah, and
settling.
One thing I've learned in life is that you have to aim high enough that if you don't make your goal or your aim, then at least you will fall somewhere close to that, or hopefully. It's a bit like golf, right?
No, like, I was literally going to jump.
We're both golfers, and sometimes you have to go for the pin, and sometimes you have to play the percentage shot.
I just think you've got to learn to be able to go out on your own and practice by yourself and have the motivation to do that. And if you want to become better, there's people who enjoy a good jolly up at golf, and there's people who enjoy practicing and getting and improving. And it's not right or wrong what type of person you are, but it lends. This brand has been created off the back of that ethos, and it's interesting to see where, like, a brand's got a character. And it's when you start to peel back the layers of the owners, you start to see why it was successful. It's like reverse engineering the success, isn't it? You sort of, what makes you so successful is because of these kind of situations, if that makes sense. And the drive to improve and the drive for perfection is a detailer's mindset, isn't it? That's what detailers strive for, isn't it? To undo things, to take things apart, to clean where people don't clean, and that sort of stuff. So I suppose when you were building this brand, would I be right in saying that that was your mindset? It was go further than others could possibly think to go, and see what can be done within its limitations to create something that was gonna work.
I think you're right, and that was certainly a large part of it. That wasn't the only part of it.
Sure.
There were specific challenges. This is quite a complex topic in itself. But there's specific. Just saying that you want to be the best, I don't think is
Everyone goes on X Factor to get signed, right?
Yeah, it's a very broad. Sweeping statement.
Not everyone,
right?
Everyone can sing, but they can't always sell records.
Absolutely. So it wasn't the fact that we said, we want to be the best. Of course, we try and create as best products as we can, and we always try and create market-leading products. But for us, it was challenging some of the stigmas that have been around in the industry for a very long time.
Yes.
Because certainly as detailers, when we were doing it from, let's say, 2006, when we first started, we turned professional in 2008. We stopped around 2013, 2014. I can't remember exactly when we stopped, but we did wind it down. And there was a lot of, I guess, misconceptions or beliefs that everyone stood by. And as an example, let's talk about the first 3 products. So
Great,
car shampoos.
great
Oh,
segue. That was a great segue, by the way. Very skillfully done. Well done, mate.
Thank you very much. I'm getting good at this.
You are getting good at this. I like that. Well done. Go on.
Well, car shampoo, there was a common belief, and it's still potentially a wide held belief, that pH neutral car shampoos don't really clean. Right? They're there just to provide lubrication, so you can, wash the surface. Obviously, it will clean the dirt off the surface, but it's not. It's not a deep cleaner. And one of the things we wanted to do was say, right, well, why can't a pH neutral shampoo clean really well? Why can't it do that? Why can't a pH neutral shampoo tackle greases like maybe a high alkaline product can?
Yeah.
And why is it that shampoos that we've used in the past, and feedback from other detailers and prosumers and enthusiasts, where they say, oh, well, I use this shampoo in the winter and this shampoo in the summer, and I use this gloss enhancing shampoo for these types of cars, and they end up having 3 or 4 different products for the same job, because not one of those products can do all of the things that they want it to do. So we went into creating a car shampoo that excelled in lots of different facets of what I've just mentioned, and challenge those common held beliefs in that specific product type. The same with Decon shampoo. At the time when we released Decon shampoo, these decontamination shampoos weren't popular. There were some brands that had them, but I didn't feel that they executed their brief well enough, because they were still stuck in that notion that it had to be pH neutral or close to pH neutral.
Yes.
It had to,
which creates limitations, because you
work in a certain way. It had to be in a bucket. It couldn't be used in another way. And
played it safe. They played it a bit safe.
Absolutely. And we were like, well, why does it have to do that? And then that's where Roger and I would have many a nights discussing what do we want the product to be before we even went to the chemist.
Yeah, exactly.
And we knew the types of rebuttals we would get from chemists about how you would approach such a product. And our job was to challenge them and make them think differently, because ultimately chemists aren't detailers. Right? And I've said this to you many times offline, so this won't be new to you, Jonny, but I've said you can have a chemist that is fantastic at making, let's say that chefs, one of them will be brilliant at making pastries. Yeah. Another one will be brilliant at actually making cakes. Yeah. Another one will be brilliant at cooking steak. Another one will be brilliant at making Chinese food. Another one will be brilliant at, and it's rare that you find chefs that are excellent at everything. There's going to be areas where they're not as good as making pastries as another chef would be, or making a chocolate gâteau, and another one, makes a better, I don't know, key lime pie or whatever. I don't know what I'm going with this food analogies, but it's so it what came apparent to us was that it was up to us to make sure that we challenged the chemist appropriately with data, with a very specific brief of what we wanted, how we wanted the product to perform, and then sort of use our financial muscle that we had at the time to do the testing, do the synthetic testing in the laboratory, do the environmental testing, and really push the boundaries on what we could achieve with that product.
Yeah, and that goes with what was going to be my next question, was who you were going to aim, because I always, when I'm creating content, it's always about who does this thumbnail and this script and this kind of concept that I'm trying to, who is the guy, this called Gary, what does Gary want from this? Does that make sense? Well, who am I aiming this at? Does that make sense? And it's just always interesting for me to find out from that 5-year plan, was you always aiming at the professional market? Was you trying to aim at the enthusiast market? I mean, it's like you said, it's very hard to be that broad and go across all markets, but the concept to create a Gary's Therapy, what is the word? Accreditation. Was that always going to be part of the process, or was that just something that came with the development?
The way I would answer that question, Jonny, is look at golf. Let's take golf. You know about golf. Mm-hmm. How do golf companies advertise their products? They have an elite golfer using a set of clubs right?
True.
And they market the golfer and the clubs with that golfer, and they create content and material around that. A consumer's going to go into their golf club and their golf shop, and they're going to be like, right, Tiger Woods, I want what he uses.
Wears Nike, plays with Titleist clubs, or plays with plays Nike balls, Nike clubs, Nike everything, basically.
Right. I want to use what he uses. I want to use what Rory McIlroy uses. Or let's do some football. I want to have the same boots as Harry Kane. Or,
I know nothing about golf. I'm just starting out golf, but he's the best golfer in the world, so I think I need to use all of Nike.
Right. So if you apply that to detailing, why would you want to create products for detailers and then say, no, only professionals can use that? You guys aren't good enough to use that.
I agree.
That's, and from a business perspective, that doesn't make sense, right? Because
I agree.
Ultimately, how many detailers are there in the UK? Let's say, I don't know, let's say 1,000 detailers, 1,500 maybe.
Yeah.
But there's millions of people potentially that would want to wash their own car.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense to only target a limited group. I'm not saying it categorically that's the case, but when you're building a brand, you have to take those into consideration.
So my question was basically, who are you aiming it at? So he wasn't really specifically aiming at anyone, but he was trying to basically create really, really good products that everyone could enjoy. Does that make sense? If they got
yes,
play with.
However,
make them safe enough that everyone could use them as well at the same time.
It goes back to what I was saying about aiming high. So we wanted to make a line of products that detailers would want to use, and then by proxy, everyone else would want to use them because detailers would want to use them.
Yeah. No, I get it. I love it. I love that. I love that idea because it doesn't always work like that, Maz. Because a lot of people tend to look at the consumer market because it's the bigger market over the detailing market, right? So they sell products that just work, like you said about other products that created a decon shampoo that really weren't quite hitting those targets that they weren't. They were getting close enough, but they weren't pushing. They could have pushed a bit harder to go a bit braver, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Roger and I felt that if we could make products that we would be happy with using, and then in turn professional detailers would be happy in using, then that will be easier to translate or
Agreed.
pitch to
Really agree.
prosumers and consumers that would also want to use the products. And it's one of the reasons why, in line with the ethos that I don't suffer false gladding, I don't suffer bad processes glads, I also don't want to suffer bad products either. So that's why we don't have snow foams that are pink, and we don't currently have a spray and rinse product because I don't feel that meets
the requirement.
The quality of the product, or the type of protection it's offering, or the type of where would that fit into a professional detailing
product. It's a shortcut product, and garage therapy isn't about shortcut.
Yes. Now that's not to say that we'll never make a product like that.
If the market asks for it, then it's always trying to improve on. That's the truth.
There is a use case to have that product, which has come very apparent to me, certainly in the last few years. But back to your question, I always felt that if we created professional grade products that genuinely push the boundaries in terms of performance, quality and value, which we really believe in, and they use them, then everything else should come easier.
Yeah. So just to backtrack a little bit, go back around. So just tell me exactly the system for those who are listening. The system starts off with 0, right?
Yes. So we wanted to have some of our personalities or DNA into the brand, with Roger being a structural engineer and me being in IT. So certainly in mathematics and in information technology, everything starts with 0 as the number, and computing with 0 and 1, right? And that is the start of everything. And we wanted to make the system easy for people to understand, but deep enough for really technical people to appreciate. And we created the 0 decontamination range to signal to people that this is the serious heavy hitting chemicals. So you know that if you reach for the 0 range on your shelf, that you're getting something that was going to tackle the heavy dirt, the contaminants, etc. We wanted the next step in that process to be the 1, right? So that's the very first step. So 1 meaning the first step in the range, and that's the maintenance portion of the car clean. 2 is your protective step, so that may be a quick detailer to finish off the car. And then 3 is if you really want to get into it and then start thinking about coatings or more boutique protective products. Maybe it's a glass sealant, maybe it's a ceramic sealant type product that to the layperson might not necessarily mean anything, but to the prosumers, the enthusiasts, and the professionals would mean something. And we get the odd question saying, "Oh, how come your last stage protective product is number 3 and not in number 2?" and things of that nature. And you have to segregate them in some way.
Yeah. You want the detailer to be able, or the person to be able to recognise when they're going to pick up a bottle in a rush that it's also. There's a distinct difference between using the decon shampoo compared to the car shampoo, right? So if they pick one up by just by not thinking and they put it in their bucket, there's colours, obviously, the colour differences of the products help as well.
Absolutely, and I guess one of the issues we've had, certainly with 2 products, is like sometimes people get confused with Sigma and Quick Detailer. That's happened several times where someone said, "Oh, I can see why definitely, because they're both the same color." Yeah, very similar colors. And one of the problems with that is that, well, we're after performance and quality, and sometimes when you introduce a color or a scent,
has a big impact.
It has an impact, right? And so you end up with different products almost looking the same, depending on what their base chemical makeup is. And unfortunately for those 2 products, they share some similarities.
And your bottles are all clear. They're clear. They're clearly marked. There's a lot of fantastic information that all over the products, which I think is really, really important for people to use. There's great. It's clear. It's concise. It's methodical. It's easy to follow as well. You do look at the bottle and you can read it well and you can understand it well, and it's designed at all different types of people who read bottles, basically, which sounds like a stupid thing, isn't it? But it is actually really important that there's a lot of brands out there that don't actually even have safety information or these kind of stuff on their products, which is mad.
That certainly, yeah. I mean, we write all of our own labels.
I know.
So we spend a lot.
I can hear you in my head when I'm reading it.
Yeah. When we've had scenarios where certain other brands have copied our labels, and I'm reading the back and I'm thinking, no, I wrote this because I know how I write things.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't ChatGPT. It definitely wasn't ChatGPT.
Certainly not. Yeah, but we take that as a compliment, I guess. And
it's an important part of flattery, isn't it? Imitation,
absolutely, flattery. And it's an important part of us getting to the customer what the product's about and what we're about, and we give little nuggets and clues as to
I love them.
How you can potentially go.
That's a whole nother podcast for that one. But
indeed,
the nuggets are what made our relationship stronger. You brought me closer through these Easter eggs. It's like playing computer games back in the day, and you have to jump up 3 times,
Easter egg.
duck down 3 times, and you can go through the wall and go into another room. Does that make sense? The garage for every product, the Easter eggs in them is why I'm so passionate about creating content with you guys, because it's, for me, the content creation in this sector is become saturated with, as I've called you before, Mazgasms of information, of where you've worked really, really well and closely with creators in this space. But it feels repetitive, and I didn't want to become another creator just turning out the same noise. I wanted to question it. I wanted to press on it, push it, come back at you with stuff, and that's where our relationships become stronger and more and respectful, if that makes sense to that, because I go through that process with all the products and annoy the granny out of you for hours about little things that I'm finding with stuff, which is great. And that's where it moves on to me, like with the this part of this topic for this episode is what are your non-negotiables in the business? I think you've just touched on a little bit, so it's one of those questions that I'm just reading out. But what are your non-negotiables? Is it just failure to do your best? Is probably one of them, isn't it?
So that's an excellent question. Non-negotiable. Well,
I've nicked it off another podcast, by the way, so I'm not going to lie. But I think I love that question that much because it was like, big shout out to the High Performance podcast, by the way.
Non-negotiable. I think it's an excellent question. It's certainly got me thinking. What we've realised, so what a lot of people don't know is as a company, we've learned a hell of a lot over the 5 years. So if you've been following us for the last,
I've seen it. I've seen it.
6 years
I've seen
now.
it since your inception. I came into the detail industry when your first products came out. So I've actually, my journey and your journey are actually identical. You know what I mean?
And
2019,
we've
2020.
learned and changed and pivoted and improved as we've gone along, as not necessarily just the products, but us as a business and how we execute what we're doing operationally, or whether it's accounting or whatever the vertical of the business requires. You know, we've had to adapt. And one of the things that I've been frustrated with is the packaging industry. It's taken us a long time to settle on bottles that we thought were of the quality that we'd wanted, and even then they're still not up to the quality that we really want. And unfortunately in the UK, the options, there's a lot of options, but not all of them are actually great. And there's certain types of bottles that we dislike, Roger and I, and that we refuse to use because of whether it's economics or the way that the label looks on the bottle, etc., etc. So whilst I guess quality is a non-negotiable, and it's a very easy thing to say, premium quality, and we see a lot of that in various industries, all claiming to be premium quality when sometimes the product is far from it. But we want the quality of the label, the quality of the bottle, the quality of the trigger to be the very best it can be. And whilst in the beginning that was a non-negotiable, you learn in life and in business that you have to compromise. And I guess that's the only answer I can give you at this moment. But I think we should revisit this question again in the future.
Oh, definitely, Johnny, definitely put a pin in it. And like I said, I've only got one more question for you. And this 15-minute podcast, I said it was going to be 15 minutes. I knew the way we were going to operate.
It's never going to be with us talking.
That was one of my non-negotiables. It wasn't always going to turn out the way it was. But what I wanted to say was, this goes back to our interaction back in the day, and it's interesting because it's what experience are you hoping the consumer feels when using the garage therapy products? Because it was something that you reached out to before I kind of loved it. I loved it. It was, we want you to use our products, Johnny, if you really believe in them. If you don't, then don't bother. It's not a problem. It's just like, we want you to enjoy the products. So I'm not going to answer that question for you, but what was it for you that you want the consumer walking away from when they pick up a garage therapy product and they use it for the first time? I mean, have you thought that deep into it, or is it just do what you best you can and hopefully the rest takes over? Does that make sense? But what would you want people to take away from garage therapy?
So there's almost too many facets to go into when you're creating a product. But one of the key facets is the user experience. And
the therapy,
again, this is
the therapy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we have talked about this before, Johnny, but for the benefit of the listeners, I always use the example of, and again, it's another golf analogy, is when they blindfolded a golfer and they put a ball down and they got him to swing the club and hit the ball blindfolded, the player did not know whether that ball was hard or soft, right? Because they relied on, I've said it the wrong way around. They put earmuffs.
They took their senses away.
Yeah, they earmuffs, not blindfolded.
Yeah.
They put earmuffs on them so they couldn't hear the sound of the ball as they struck it. And they couldn't tell whether it was a low compression ball or high compression ball. And they realized that the sound that the ball made was what gave the feel to the customer. Now, in detailing, we have a lot of different senses. We've got smell, we've got the sound, we've got the feel of whether it's a mitt or a microfiber, with your hands when you're cleaning your vehicle. So all of those visual cues, all of the smells, all of the sounds when you're creating a product are very, very important. And you say the sound, well, when you spray the bottle, if it's making a squeaking sound because the bottle is like, collapsing under the suction of the trigger, that's not exactly very endearing experience, right?
No.
Right.
Labels
And I'm
falling off.
sure detailers have all had that bottle, where they put tar and glue remover on there. It's all sucked in, and the trigger is splurting out and making an awful sound.
That's true.
Or
It's so true.
If the product smells, I'm going to use our mutual friend Eddie.
Yeah.
In the States, if it says it's, iron fallout removers smell like butthole. Well, some iron fallout removers smell worse than others, and that can dictate their senses and their feel for the performance of a product.
That's definitely right.
Some people, the worse it smells, the better it's performing, because they think, wow, this is really powerful. It smells so bad that it's powerful.
This must be good, yeah.
On other categories of product, if a product smells nice, then their enjoyment of and use of the product almost gets enhanced, regardless of how the product performs on the surface. So there's a lot of factors that we take into consideration when using the products. I guess when you use a garage therapy product, we want there to be an instant feeling that you're using something different, whether that is sight, smell, hearing, feel, and or the visual look of the bottle, as an example. And then when they get that feeling, there has to be an actual tangible result showing them that it's actually worked better. So
yes. You can have everything smell like cola bottles if you want, but if it doesn't give you that result you want, then
absolutely
it's absolutely irrelevant, because it's thumbnails on videos, titles on videos, the storyline for the video. If you don't pay the person off at the end, it was all for nothing, and you get found out really quickly. So for you basically want people to walk away having an experience, whatever their experience was, good or bad. They've had an experience, obviously not bad, but I'm just saying they've like
absolutely, and we're very humbled
that they've walked away with sometimes maybe questions more than answers, which is great, because it's then like, that's how I was. I walked away going, my thing, and I'll leave the audience for this one, was, is it really that fucking good? Like, is it really that good? Like, all these YouTubers are giving it the Billy Big Balls online all the time. I'm like, come on. And my ego is kicking in going, I can find a flaw with these. Surely not every product range has every product that can perform. And it's nice that you've proved me wrong, because that's why I'm sat here today telling this story, because this is my story as well, about the fact that I've gone down the rabbit hole trying to find weaknesses in his products, trying to find ways that they'll do something, do this, and I've been part of that experience myself. It's helping me in my business. It's creating an experience for me in my business that's trustworthy. I feel like it's helping my business grow better, having the Garage Therapy brand on my as a product that I use alongside a few other products that you don't have quite now in the product range. Obviously, you don't have everything right now. You don't have glass coatings and other stuff like that in there right now, but there's other things obviously I use from other things. But it feels like it represents my brand, and that is, I want to use the best all the time, and something that can keep me entertained, if that makes sense. And so I shouldn't be answering that question for you, but I'm just giving you my personal experience, because
and I'm delighted that for the kind words, and that you feel that way, Jonny. And like as I've said to you many times in the past, we're humbled that we have some of the best detailers in the country accredited with us, and they, even to this day, after being accredited with us now for 2-3 years, still feed back and say, wow, I'm still blown away by this product or that product every time we use it. And
it's a peace of mind. I get a peace of mind. I know it's going to work. It's a peace of mind. You can
rely on it, right?
I can rely on it in all temperatures, all weathers, all scenarios, and it makes me feel safe using it.
Yeah, and I guess what maybe answering your question, giving a different answer to a question, is maybe we want the end user, whoever, whether it's a professional capacity or not, that when they finish using the product, they look back and think, yeah, that's good. That look back that you give when you really like something, you might walk away and you give a quick glance back and
the old over the shoulder, lock the car. Oh, that's nice. No, that's it. Listen, I think that's that's what it is. And I think, like I said, in we're going to go deeper. We're going to go deeper because we go deep anyway. We go deep on a daily basis, mate, on all these sort of things anyway. And it's as my journey and your journey continues in your business and your brand, my journey continues in my business and my brand. And so I felt like this was an important step for me to be able to outsource all this stuff that we talk about all the time, to have a platform where I can ask you the questions on a different platform that is just not between me and you. I just feel like there's so much information that I love to give the audience and my audience as well, and that it gets lost sometimes in. We have so many great moments of chats over the past couple of years, and they're kind of lost. And I kind of like, we've got this relationship now where we can have a chat, if that makes sense, and just hopefully people listening learn like us, like to learn a little bit more and hopefully move on with their career a bit more and engage with the products a bit more and hopefully learn a bit more. Anything I want to say before we sign off, Maz?
No, just thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for doing this, and I'm really excited for the next episodes that we've got coming up to tell the listeners out there a little bit more about Garage Therapy and your journey with us as well, Jonny.
Absolutely.
And if it helps people in any way or introduces them or gets them thinking about something they never thought before, then I think that's a win for everyone, right?
Absolutely. And just let everyone know, obviously, listening across the globe or wherever they listen to it. The products right now are all available in your nearest retailer in the UK, and they've just launched. They'll be launching this week, circumventing the 14th of February. We are at the moment, Valentine's Day, having a chat. Our poor girlfriends, poor wives. While we're having our little romantic meal together tonight, Maz. Are going to be launching next week at the House of Rags distributors over in America. So wherever you are, wherever you're doing, don't forget to pre-order. And if there's anything else, you can also, one of the things I'll say to you that Maz probably won't mind me saying, is the one thing I loved about the brand is the fact that I could always reach out on the DMs on Instagram. I could always reach out to Maz, and he would always do his utmost best to respond as fast as possible to any question, any problem I had, which for me, who's a big lover of Dyson, Nespresso machines, all these kind of things all these brands that I've worked with, customer service for me is the premium product of a business and a brand. And so one of the things that Maz does really well is gets back to people and answers as many questions. Might be a long answer question, but you'll get the answer you need in any situation you're in. I hope poor Maz doesn't get inundated with loads of questions now from
Thanks, Jonny.
Like, from my girlfriend, Maz, do you know how to fix this one as well? No, but I know how to get it stained out of a carpet. You know what I mean? So, customer service for me it trumps all products, all brands, all things, but across the board. So
we always try our best.
So listen, don't forget to give us a like. Don't forget to give us a comment down below. If there's anything you want to answer in the comments, hopefully in the next episode, if there's any questions, anything you've got, we can go into more detail with your questions. We can have people hopefully ask us directly about these certain products and hopefully myth bust and get some of these things together, because I think our journey will correlate with your journey and the fact that we can actually grow together with Garage Therapy and obviously also as detailers and try and improve every day to get better. So, we're going to leave it with that, and that's all we're going to talk about today, because that was not bad for nearly an hour. That's not bad for us, Maz.
That's fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Our focus have done longer, but I want to thank Maz for taking the time out to discuss these topics and hopefully answered a few questions for the new customers and existing customers that didn't know anything about the Garage Therapy brand. And in episode 2, we're going to go into more detail about one of the first products you'll use on any detail, and that is wheel shampoo. So we look forward to more episodes going into detail around these products, and we're going to go through step by step in each product, because I think, as you can tell from this opening episode, there's so much nuance and deep dive we can go into that I think each product deserves its own episode. So if you enjoy this kind of content, please feel free to go and follow Garage Therapy on all their socials. Give their YouTube channel a subscribe, because I'm sure some of this content will be going in that direction as well. So on that note, I'll see you guys soon, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Bye-bye.